All right, welcome back to the podcast. Today we have Donella Olson. So I'm going to go a little bit from what I've read online: home remodeling, passion for mentorship, and advocacy for culture and construction, which I love that one. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no
Happy to be here.
problem. So I don't know you, so I'm very excited to get in some of these questions. I know your online persona. I want to see how real that is because I love seeing the authenticity of people online, and you can't really hide yourself for an hour. No pressure. I'm sure you're the exact person that I would
Totally
create.
fine. I'm great. Yeah.
Totally. Okay. I want to get into some career and business growth. So, from vision to reality, you've built two island design builds into a high touch concierge level remodeling service. What was the aha moment that made you realize this was the kind of business you wanted to create?
Oh gosh, aha moment. Well, I have been designing and remodeling homes for 26 years now,
Amazing.
and not necessarily for my own company, but
Yeah.
for other companies, and have throughout those many years, just learned all of the different facets of what it takes to um, not only plan really great remodeling projects, but also work really well with clients and really genuinely get to where they to the bottom of like what they want in their project in order to create incredible spaces for them to live better in. But then also all of the different facets of the business, doing the books and estimating and planning and project management, all of it. And at a certain point, it was like, hey, I got to do this for myself, and I kind of have a little bit of my sort of the origin story of my
Yeah.
company on my website, and which talks about Two Island Lake, which is a very small and remote lake in Grand Marais, Minnesota, where my husband and I have property. And we're building a very small cabin with our own two hands. And that is really the place that I don't know, I think it was just being able to take some time
Mm.
away from, uh, we'll call it the rat race of construction,
Yeah.
and sort of remove myself from that stress and enough to be able to see what my vision is and what my purpose is, which I believe my purpose is to help people live better and be who they need in the moment that they're in right now. So um, building all of this is a way to get there.
Have you always been in the construction world? So, since you've been doing this type of work for quite a while, what drove you into construction in the beginning?
Well, I didn't grow up in construction. My
Okay.
dad wasn't a builder, he was a mechanic. And I even when I was a kid, I didn't do a lot of like traditional building projects,
Yeah.
building a playhouse or anything like that. But I was always building. When I think back to when I was a kid, I was always like building with Legos and Lincoln logs and all of the things that kids can build with. I had a dollhouse, but I was always like rearranging and doing different things with it, and just forever building things and not really. I was never one to like play dolls with the other girls, or like play house. I always was like when I was building or when I was playing with Barbies, I was building their houses out of random things from my house and then being like, yeah, this is how they would use this house. I like didn't really care about their lives, which is kind of funny. Like my sisters would be like, having prom drama or something, and I would be building the place where the prom was. So yeah, it was I just have always been building spaces for people or imaginary people, dolls, whatever,
Yeah.
to live in. Um, it's just always been there.
That's fascinating. Were either of your parents super creative?
I would say they both were creative and also probably didn't see themselves necessarily as creatives. I mean, my dad is a mechanic by trade.
Yeah.
He's a longtime salesperson, so huge on solving problems and being there for his clients and
Yeah.
really building relationships, which I think a lot of that's where I got a lot of my ability to work with people. Um, but he was also an inventor. He was always, when I was a kid, inventing things, different things. He so far doesn't have a patent, but just always really thinking of how to do things in different ways. And then my mom was very creative in that she worked with people. She was in human resources, and she was also, loved theater when she was young and that kind of a thing. And so she, they're both creative, but I don't think
Yeah.
they either really thought that they were using their creativity in their daily lives.
Yeah, I think I did the same thing with myself. I think I walked down this path of like really defining creativity into like a box, but then like I look around us, and we actually creativity is one of our core values as a company, because the things that we build out of metal, like it just blows my mind what the solutions the whole team can come up with. And I think it takes a huge amount. So I think I've really expanded my understanding what creativity can mean from like the day to day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think even just as business owners, um, you have to be creative, even if you're not particularly artsy or crafty with your hands. You still have to be very creative in order to have the visionary ability to keep reinventing and keep furthering
Sure.
the company that you're in.
Yeah, even solutions based around that, I think yeah, that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
So just so I'm clear and everyone's clear that is listening, to Island design and build, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So you said that every home has the potential to be great. How do you balance a homeowner's vision with your expertise to bring out the best in a space? I'm sure that's like, I don't know what they called them, homezillas instead of bridezillas. Do you ever run into that situation?
Oh, that's funny. I have never heard the term homezilla, but I tell you what, it's in my vocabulary now. um, yeah, so I think I don't know. I'm pretty lucky, although it's not just by chance, that I work with amazing homeowners. And part of the reason that I am so lucky, I've created that luck by having a very clear qualification process.
Ooh.
Everyone that's in sales has a qualification that they go through to
Yep.
make sure that the product that you're selling is going to meet up with the expectations of the client. And I have that. But one of the things is, they can't be jerks. And throughout the process of sort of like, being out here and then narrowing things down to the point where we're in construction, there are many conversations that happen. And in those conversations, I am drawing out what the people want in their house. And a lot of times people come to me who have no idea what they want to do or what they should do or what their home needs or whatever. They just say, I hate my kitchen, or, this main level has to go. I have no idea what to do, but I just can't anymore. But we love our location. Our kids love the school, grandparents live down the street, whatever it is. We're not leaving this house, but we just can't live in this house anymore. And I through a lifetime of building in my mind, and also, a quarter century of actually building and remodeling. I walk in the front door and I meet people for the very first time, and I'm already seeing what needs to happen with their house. I walk through and we go into the kitchen and they start telling me everything that they hate about it or whatever it is. And I'm thinking, okay, well, we need to like move it. Like it doesn't belong here. It needs to go on the other side of the house, and your bathroom needs to go here. And then the living space needs this view and whatever it is. And that's all happening in my brain as they're moving through their space. And for the most part, because of that, because of my qualification process and because I'm able to draw out from people what they actually want in their home and how they want to live in their home. Most of the time people are like, yeah, whatever you say. Wow. Like
You're the expert. Yeah.
that's incredible. A lot. I never would have thought of that. Like so many of my clients say, I never would have thought of that. And so I always am, even from the very beginning, really encouraging them to just, stay open. I understand you've lived in your house for 20 years. You see it in the box that you've lived in. I'm walking in for the very first time. And oh, by the way, this floor plan, I've remodeled this before. Like I know what can be done here. And not that I'm doing anything cookie cutter, because I'm not, but at the same time, there are just sort of some flow aspects that in 100-year-old homes or 50-year-old homes or 20-year-old homes, like they just are typical bottlenecks or typical points of contention with people. And so I already am starting to draw on my experience in order to kind of suggest ways that people can improve their house.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Do you do work? So do you have do you stay in your area, or what does that look like from do you only help people within your area or outside? What does that look like?
Within my area, so I'm based in Richfield, Minnesota, which is, 3 miles south of Minneapolis. And so most of the work that I do is in the South Minneapolis area. And for the people who are local to here, you'll know where I'm talking about. But South Minneapolis, a little bit on the West Side Lakes areas, slightly south, but for the most part, I'm staying pretty central to the
Awesome.
Minneapolis area. I'll travel east a little bit to the other side of the metro if it's the right project and for, amazing clients. But for the most part, I have been lucky enough to kind of stick around the area that I live, which is great.
From the construction standpoint, if you have a vetting process with your customers, I'm assuming you have quite the vetting process with your subcontractors. What does that look like?
Well, so a lot of the subcontractors that I work with, I've worked with for many years.
Gotcha.
A handful of them have come with me, through the various phases of my career, and trust them to do exactly what they're supposed to do and to ask me the questions that they need to ask me and answer the questions that I have. And we just have a really good working relationship. And I don't see those going away anytime soon. And those are, some really core relationships like electrician, plumber, HVAC people, insulation, carpenters, the things that really you base your projects on. And my cabinet maker is amazing. So really being able to align on the values of, just building for people. And I like to try and when I'm meeting somebody for the first time, I like to try and talk about things like, interacting with clients. And for the most part, they're not interacting with clients because we sort of have an agreement, clients talk to me, I talk to them, they talk to me, I talk to clients, just because that's how it works best. But, just talking about their team too, and sort of the culture of their team. And because it's just really important to make sure that, so we're remodeling, we're in people's homes.
Yeah.
We're basically living with them for like 6 months at least. And it's really important to know that the people that are working in that home, even if the clients aren't living there at the time, that they're respecting their home. And so it's just a lot of, through a lot of different conversations, just pulling that, again, just sort of asking the right questions to get the answers that I'm looking for. And that allow us to work really well together. Communication is the biggest thing. I mean, it really is just being able to be able to say like, hey, that wasn't exactly the way that I was picturing it. Let's talk about how that can be reworked, or why did you do it that way? Whatever. And those folks that I've worked with for a really long time are just like, it's no big deal. And that's really the big thing, is no big deal. We just work through it. Right.
Yeah, it's really good. I think the empathy part of being in someone's house, I don't think every contractor takes that into consideration as much as they should. And living through construction site in your own house is the most stressful thing you can do, I think, as a
Oh my
homeowner, unless you're
gosh.
building it from nothing, right? It is awful.
Yeah. And I have such empathy for my clients who are going through this. So I'm constant, like I have a really, I'm really proactive about
Mm.
site protection and cleaning and ventilation and giving updates to the clients all the time, just like more than they even need to,
Yeah,
more than they probably even want me to be updating
right.
them, but just making sure that they know that everything is taken care of and that I am fully taking care of everything. And that's really part of it's really the whole dynamic of the way that I operate as a company, is fully, fully, fully taking care of clients.
Mm.
They just really should want for nothing while they're under construction. So,
How many projects would you stack up at one time if you're into that? Because that mode takes a certain amount of your time, I'm sure. So I'm sure you may not, you may limit yourself on the amount of projects you can do all at one time.
that's a great question. Yeah. So far, um, for the first few years of my company, one at a time. Which of course is, there's probably folks out there being like, one at a time. Like, how do you even do that? And the answer is, I need to do a couple at a time. So now that I'm, have my rhythm, and I've started to be able to function really well on one at a time, now I'm ramping up to two at a time, or, sort
Nice.
of overlapping a little bit. I have a really, really strong principle of that you need to get better before you get bigger. And
Mm.
so really honing that, like being able to manage these jobs and have them be really, really well produced and, on schedule and all of the things, um, getting that really better before I can stack them and be bigger. I don't see myself doing more than um, two or maybe three at a time, when
I'm
it's
sure that
just
based on
me.
complexity, right? Too, right? They don't have to all look the same either.
Right, right. It's funny too though, like a bathroom project. I don't do a whole lot of just bathrooms because for me it just doesn't work well for my business model. But
Sure.
um, to do a bathroom project and do a kitchen project is essentially like the same amount of effort on my part and almost the same amount of time spent managing it. And so that's one of the complexities that I think most homeowners don't really understand about, like, why is this bathroom project so expensive? It's like, well, it's like a little kitchen,
Yeah.
you
It's
know?
plumbing and all the problems that go
Yeah.
with it. Yeah.
Yeah. It has every single trade. And
Mm.
so they are actually pretty complex. So, there's that too. I can't necessarily do one bathroom at a time all through the year. I have to have, a whole main floor or an addition or that kind of
Yeah.
thing too.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're saying controlled growth, which a lot of people
Mhm.
take for granted. Um, because when you are out of control, it's probably the worst feeling on the planet. And I've been there on multiple fronts, actually with two different companies. And it's the worst feeling ever, because you're almost like feel like a runaway train, and it's
Yeah.
very hard to get back in line. So huge props to you, because especially from your customer's perspective, like you said, it's a very sensitive place you're heading into is their home, and you're disrupting it to the utmost.
Literally demolishing it. Yeah. Yes.
So
But
good
it's
on
always
you.
like, I'm always very good about like, or, at least I think I'm good at being able to say like, okay, it gets worse before it gets better. Like, this is
Sure.
actually very exciting. It's not traumatic. Like, this is all part of it. This is
I
the
have no
roller
walls,
coaster.
Danella. I have no walls.
They're
uh,
coming back. It's okay. We're just putting them in a
understood.
different place.
That's so funny. Challenges in remodeling. Remodeling isn't just about design, it's about people, budget, surprise behind walls. What's the
Mhm.
wildest or most unexpected challenge you faced on a project, and how did you handle it?
how to pick the
The Homezilla. Which one's the Homezilla?
Homezilla. There are a few notable ones, but I think I'll talk about the porch project.
Ooh.
So a couple years ago, 2 summers ago, I was returning to a client's home to do another project. This was, I think, the third project that I did for them. And I was only in business for 2.5 years by then. So that speaks well, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so these clients wanted to have their front porch just sort of spruced up. They had, so if you can imagine, a 100-year-old home, their house was built, I think, in 1920 or so.
Wow.
And so it originally was a bungalow with a little open front porch. And before they purchased the house, a contractor flipped the house. And during that flip process, added a second floor to the entire second floor, including over the porch. And so it was just this really big addition on top of the house. And it gave them a lot of great space. And it was one of the reasons that they loved the house when they looked at it. Because in this neighborhood, there were not very many houses that size. And so they loved it, moved in, whatever. We embark on this project of remodeling their porch. Now, their porch had, it was originally an open porch, but it had been fitted at some point, probably in the 70s or something, with these steel storm windows that none of them were working. Some of them were cracked or broken. Just really couldn't even see through them because they were so terrible. And so we were going to take those windows out and put in some polyvinyl slider, really nice big view windows. And a few other things, replace their front door and do a little sprucing up with the paint, maybe a light fixture, whatever. And as part of planning the project, I said, you know what? A lot of times we find when we take these storms out of these porches, we find some water damage in the sills and around the post wraps and things like that. So once those windows come out, I'm going to investigate. I'm going to start poking around. I'm going to figure out to what extent. And I said, it's there. I can tell you that it's there. I just can't tell you what it is right now because it's all under the windows and inside. Yeah. And so windows come off and I go over there. I'm like, great, windows are done. They're out of there. And I go over there and I'm finding the rot and kind of pulling it out little piece by piece to see how far it goes. And as I'm doing this, I realize I had my little flat pry bar that I had brought with me to just sort of pick through things. Yeah. And as I'm doing that, I realize here's the center post of the porch. My pry bar goes all the way in, hits the other side wrap. There's no post there. It's just 1x wrap that is rotted from the bottom by
oh my goodness.
That much. Just rotted from the bottom. The sills are rotting in that area. So I go over to the corner posts. Same thing. There's no posts in this.
How is this thing standing?
I don't know. So right away, I'm like, okay, there's not enough structure here. These windows were holding up the house.
Holy
right?
smokes.
The steel frames of these windows were clearly the support of this porch. And so right away, I'm like, okay, I got to shore this up. I got to make sure it's just steady right now so I can figure this out. So I immediately that day, got some emergency shoring. So giant aluminum I-beams through both of the corners of the porch on scaffolding. The company was amazing. Infinity Scaffold. They're great. And told the homeowners, okay, don't be alarmed because I'm doing this just to if this doesn't need to happen, like if we find out, if we do engineering, we dig into this, we find out this was totally fine, I'm paying for the scaffolding, I'm paying for the shoring, but I know that it needs to be done. So we're doing this. And so the beams go in, we dig in, start demoing strategically around, find that, long story, a little bit shorter. So there's no structure in any of the posts. There's 3 posts, no structure. Below those posts are basically no framing. So there's like a half wall with the posts on top. In that half wall is 2x4s on center, or 2x4s across there, 24 inches on center. And in the corners below the posts are like all this slapped together 2x4 blocking, not even like full continuous pieces. And below the post in the center is there's not even one 2x4 right below the post. Like it's just nothing. Wow. The footings were not footings. It was one row of cinder block that was about 2 inches into the dirt, sitting on about 2 inches of sand. And then the beams above were 2x6 beams across the whole 25-foot span in front, and then to the house. And then the floor joists up above were 2x6s as well, 24 inches on center.
And this was for their whole second story remodel.
Yeah. Their second floor bedroom, their bedroom, was sitting on this.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and those of you who know structure, you know that this is awful. This is terrible. Like, so then the questions start to be, immediately, let's re-engineer this. What do we need to do to keep it up in the air, right?
Yeah.
So immediately work on engineering, but then also, like, how did this happen? Right? Like, this was a contractor.
Save as much money as possible. Well, how did it get inspected?
The inspection, like, there's this whole like long list.
Holy smokes.
So anyone that would come to like look at it and talk through it with me, I would explain what was going on, and they would just look at me like, what?
What do you mean?
What? And every single person was like, where was the inspector? And we, if you're a contractor, you understand that, yes, this should not have passed inspection. It should not have passed plan review before it even got the permit. But here's what we know as contractors. Plan review and inspections they're not there to guarantee that something's safe. They're not there to guarantee it's done correctly or up to your standards. They're there to check a box for the municipality. And
get a $25 check. Yeah.
Right. And so, and I'm not saying, like, I respect the job that they're doing. And a lot of times those plan reviewers give me a lot of information that, that I end up having to feed into the project, which is great. But how does this happen? Right. So of course, I, as a contractor who cannot stand when we're given a bad name by the work of others, I go down this whole like wormhole of like, who is this person? What happened here? And it turned out to be like, 5 companies deep and 3 different qualified persons, and like just a whole like
mess,
digging into this mess of like whatever. And the people are still in business, and we're not going to get into that.
Yeah.
But we ended up digging 3 new footings, 5 feet deep, building up the blocks, 16-inch block footings, rebar, the whole thing. Yep. Putting in footing to beam 6x6 posts in all 3 spots, sistering onto the interior of that 2x6 interior central beam, all the way around with I think it was a 9-inch LVL, and the engineer actually said the floor joists were fine, And
Oh,
so
good.
I
Whew.
gave them the option, do you want to upgrade this or do you want to leave it as is? And they took a couple of days and they said, you know what, we walk around upstairs and it's totally fine. Like we don't feel like we're sagging, we don't feel like
Yeah,
it's
sure.
moving. And so we left them because technically they were fine. We did spray foam it because there was no insulation in there. In the
Jeez.
floor of the bedroom, there was no insulation because it was the original 100-year-old porch. And ended up, redoing the ceiling and redoing a bunch of the trim. And then eventually putting in those beautiful polyvinyl windows and, doing the paint and whatever. We ended up having to remove, replacing the door and a couple of other things in order to get it closer to where their
Jeez.
original budget was. But this is an example of an extreme case of not being able to see what was there. Very extreme. Most of the time it's like, well, there's probably some water damage under that sink cabinet. We'll replace the subfloor. Like that's kind of the extent of it. Most of the time, I know just, based on experience, knowing what could be in the walls and what kind of damage or what kind of hazardous materials we might find. And so that's all kind of planned for to begin with. And if we can't foresee it entirely, there's a contingency in there or an allowance, that kind of thing. But this is something that, man, I never would have thought of. Now I will.
Yeah, no doubt.
Now I will. Wow. On the plus side, they are ecstatic about their porch and their whole project. Awesome. They feel amazing amount of weight lifted off of their shoulders, that they know that everything is, standing well, and it will be for another 100 years. And they plan on selling their house in the spring. And so that was part of the impetus of like updating the porch so that they could have this.
Got to be right. Yep.
Yeah. And so now they feel really good about that. They don't have to disclose anything on the sale and that kind of thing. And now I'm replacing their front doors.
Hey. Not all contractors are created equal.
It's and I mean, I'll do a little brag moment, but I've won 2 awards for the project now. So
is that the 2 behind you?
One of them is behind me. The other one was a regional that they just announced last week. So
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
thanks.
That's awesome. Let me see. Let me make sure I'm on the right one here. Yes. As a certified kitchen and bath remodeler and a licensed building contractor, you're thriving in an industry where women are still underrepresented. What's your take on what needs to change to create more opportunities for women in the trades?
I think awareness is one of the things, making.
You mean as what kind of work it is, so it's not so scary, or that women are capable, or yes?
More just letting women know that it's an option for them.
Yeah.
Because I think just most of the time, I mean, I even find myself doing it sometimes, which I hate. People just assume that construction workers are men. ChatGPT, by the way, anytime I ask it for an image of me doing something, gives me a man first. And then I have to, hey man, it's the internet. It's not GPT, it's the internet.
The internet's biased.
It's what we put out there.
That's correct.
And so, which is actually a really, like as far as social experiments go, that's like, couldn't get better, right? But yeah, I think creating awareness around it for especially young women, just embarking on their careers, deciding what they want to do. You can get into construction from a lot of different ways, and there's a lot of places to be within the construction industry. Certainly being a carpenter or being an installer or a plumber, or, whatever it is part of that. And it's one of the many areas that we need more women. But, I'm a designer. That's my background. And there are plenty of women, working in offices and things like that. So that's part of it. But yeah, I would really love to be able to just normalize having women on job sites. There's, every once in a while I'll have, kind of a one-off thing where I need to have a new subcontractor come do some work, and inevitably either the project manager or one of the workers or whatever will like, "Oh, okay, I'm confused.
Who do I need to
Where's the
talk to?
yeah, yeah. Which is one of the reasons that early on I had these t-shirts made, because
Owner.
people would have no, like, they would think they were talking to the homeowner. They had no idea who they were talking to. So it took me like maybe 2 weeks after starting my very first project on my own to have t-shirts that had my name and owner and the name of the company, because people just don't, like, not only do they not go there first, but it takes them forever to get there once I even tell them.
Gotcha.
And a lot of times people, I've had often been asked, well, so you designed it, but like, who built it? Well, I do. Like, I don't do like the majority of the actual work, but I am the general contractor. I manage the project. I'm on the job site. Like, so, and I try not to get a chip on my shoulder about it. I try to just take the opportunity to inform and
enlighten. That's right.
Enlighten, exactly, and lead by example, which I think is a really, really important, because there's. So I just was introduced to a conversation with somebody about how men are like really nervous when women are on the job site, like when there's a group of carpenters that are framing in a basement or something, and a female comes in, regardless of what her position is, whether it's the owner of the company or another carpenter or a plumber or whatever it is, or the inspector, whatever, walks in, and it's hush. And I read this, it was somebody that I was reading her post on LinkedIn, and I thought, yeah, that happens to me too, all the time. And it made me think, I actually think I have a post scheduled for tomorrow.
Let's go. She schedules posts.
I do. Hey man, I'm busy.
Oh, it's a life hack of LinkedIn. If you're not scheduling posts, you're doing it wrong.
So it just made me think, like, what were you talking about before I walked in that you couldn't talk about while I was here? Because if you were talking about something before I walked in that I would be offended by, you shouldn't be talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but also in that conversation that I was having, she talked about how men really are like afraid that they're going to
offend.
Not even offend, but like, I don't know how to be around women on a job site.
Yep.
And that part I really want to understand more about, because I feel like it's whenever we have this conversation about like men on job sites, women on job sites, or even just in any working environment.
Yeah.
It's not just one-sided. Like, this isn't a woman thing. This isn't a man thing.
Nope.
This is an us thing. And the only way that we can figure out how to navigate it and how to move forward and be better in the future is if we're all in the conversation, without judgment. Right.
Agreed. That's hard for a lot of people, though. So it's really interesting you say that, because I remember when we were getting our first female on the shop floor, and there was some nervousness about it, right? From some of the managers. And I remember saying, like, what are you nervous about? You just tell the people that, one, you should always be talking to each other with respect. And there's certain things in this workplace that are not acceptable. That doesn't change whether there's a female here or not. They may think differently out there, but like, that should not be. And I will say that I feel like the maturity level of the shop raised when women entered. So now we have quite a few, because it's not just a bunch of us Neanderthal men running around the shop being idiots, right? It's now like, it's just we just went up a level, because it's like, okay, we got to act more like adults here. And that's the maturity model. And, whether that's strictly down to women joining, or whether the culture initiative I'm sure it's multifaceted, but I'm with you. I think a lot of them get nervous because what is allowed, what's not, is this person going to be offended or they're not? Like pretty much what I tell everybody, if you're even asking the question, it's probably not the right thing to say. Like
Correct.
it's pretty simple.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thanks. That's the gist of my post for tomorrow. But I thought I was, being whatever. But yeah, I mean, that's really the thing. It's like until you actually start seeing this as an equality thing and like that we're the same. Yeah, there are differences and there are things that women are better at than men and men are better at than women, typically as far as like gender things. But really, like the idea that men are like able and allowed to talk about certain things in the company of other men, I think is just sort of irresponsible, and it's not taking accountability for the content of your thoughts and your actions. It just kind of gives an excuse to keep doing the bad behavior, right?
Yeah, but don't forget what's normal in someone's life probably looks way different than what normal is in a workspace. What's acceptable in your private life, even maybe around your wife, kids, daughter, may be totally different than what work deems acceptable. So I think that line gets blurred because I think sometimes it's like I don't understand the big deal because at home this is exactly how I talk, right? And then I'm not allowed here, and I think it's a bit of confusion. So I never truly believed you had to tell people how to behave until probably about 2 years ago when we started doing these behavior videos. And it's like, no, you really do, because people's lines are kind of all over the place. So you got to make sure everybody understands, which I think it's all part of it, right? It's getting alignment really amongst everyone. So there's no questioning about it. So it's hard.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be hard. If you're respectful, I think that gets you so much. Even if you just have to ask questions, it's okay to be like, is this okay? Like if you're trying to figure it out, say like, we were having a conversation about this. You may have overheard. I apologize if it, sometimes that goes a long way just to finding the balance between each other, because we're all kind of trying to figure this out together.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, I love when people ask me. I'm generally an open book.
Yeah.
Again, it's all about communication. And I don't know. I like to learn from people, and I like people to learn from me. And we only get better when we learn about each other's experiences. So
yeah, I'm with you. And I think we're all a bit ignorant in certain ways about certain things. And there will be things that that I'm extremely ignorant on that I'll ask you and you'll be like, how did he not know that? But it'll be the same for kind of everyone, right? It's whether we grew up in that space or we understand about it, whatever it is. So I think, we have to also be open and not closed-minded once people do make mistakes or ask questions that may seem like, how did you not know that? But I think that's just part of the journey for everyone.
Yeah, I agree.
Cultural shift in construction. You're vocal about positive culture in the construction industry. We talked a little bit about. If you could snap your fingers and change one outdated mindset in the industry overnight, what would it be?
You ask hard questions. One thing. If I could snap my fingers and overnight change, I think it would be to allow people, workers, employees of companies to see their potential as not limited by the boundaries of that company or the position that they're in.
Dang! That was even better than my question. That's really good. What do you bring it into that? What are you feeling on that?
Well, I just think that, personal experience, obviously. And having realized over the course of, many different experiences that, when I had been sort of limiting my thoughts and potential based on what was allowed or what was seen by my managers or owners of the company or whatever of what my potential could be or what they wanted me to be. It's possible for your boss to see that you have this great potential but still like pigeonhole you into something that they want you to be, that serves
Because
their
it makes it
interests or
easier for them.
makes it easier for them, puts you into a position of, serving the company to the greater good, which there's nobility in that. But if it's not where you want to be, you have to decide, am I going to move on, or am I going to fight this, or am I going to, go to a different position, whatever it might be. But I think a lot of times, and I don't want to say even especially in the construction industry, because I think
It's every
things
industry.
are a lot. Construction, you're not that special. No, I mean, it's work culture. It's not just, there are things that are nuanced in construction, but it's not that different. But I think there's just this sense that people get when they kind of come into the workforce, and they, are lucky to have a job, and they don't really know everything. And then you just sort of become this part of the machine, and you don't necessarily see where you're, the value that you're creating, or the value that you could create if doors were opened, or if you were taught something that you didn't know right now. One of the things that I really think is important is really making sure that you're teaching every employee in the company what value they bring, and how their specific position in the company, how they can increase the value that they output, how they impact the bottom line, like all of the different things, so that they understand where they fit into the whole ecosystem of the company. And that allows them to say, well, what if I did this? What if I moved to this position and learned this thing, and I would have that much more value? And then maybe I moved to, so I just think that there's like this growth opportunity that comes just from sprouting this idea that I could be something better or different than what I am right now.
Whew, that's a deep rabbit hole. It's one of my favorite rabbit holes. So my two core values are humor and filling potential. And so I think the problem with potential is, well, in any leadership position, I think it's the most important thing we can do for employees. But I think it comes with a lot of insecurity that holds that back. One, if this person leaves or goes on to something better, my job instantly gets harder. Two, if this person leaves me or goes on to something better, that makes me sad. I'm insecure about it.
Right? Yeah.
Three, I don't even see this person being better because I can't see out of my own box, right? So, I mean, you just start stacking that stuff on there, and you talk about everybody knowing their value and what they do for the greater good. That's transparency and clarity in a company. That means you got to show data. That means you got to show a lot more stuff than people are comfortable with, like blah, 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 blah. You talk about all this stuff that stacks into this whole evolution of like, clarity is caring. Filling people's potential may mean they need to go away from your company, and you need to say, please go find what you deserve, because I don't have that ability right now to hand that, in the sense of the company doesn't have those positions available. So that's a hard one for a lot of people.
I also think that there's genuinely the possibility that you could send someone off to their, amazing new position at someone else's company, and then your company maybe grows and they come back. Like that's also like, why do we have to be afraid of people going away? We just, I think and I actually think it's our responsibility as business owners to help them go to their next place. If their place is no longer with your company, it's your responsibility to make a call to somebody, give them a good reference, hand them some resources, whatever it is.
Yeah. So just to be clear, I am not a business owner. I am a worker bee. That's okay. A lot of people assume I am. My wife is. So obviously I wanted to do well for her sake, but we're not cattle, right? And I get caught up in this conversation with other leaders, business owners all the time, when it's like, I just had a call recently from a friend, probably a direct competitor, and called me and said, hey, one of your employees reached out, is looking to make a move. I told you I'd give you a ring, but I told this person I wouldn't give their name. I said, no problem. I said, if we're not giving that person what they need to go on to the next chapter, or we don't have something available, like, I know you, I know how you treat your people. I know that you're a good contractor, so like please let them go find that. And and that's exactly what I told the person. But like I've been in many situations in my previous job with customers who were so dead against that kind of stuff. Like I control these people. Like I would never want somebody telling me I can't go somewhere because I want to go fill some other bucket of my life that I think is more important right now. You can't do that to people. It's
Yeah,
horrible.
or make them feel bad for it, or
No, it's crazy.
yeah. Yeah, it and if you did make somebody that was very valuable to you feel bad for leaving your company, um up to you, but maybe you want to reach out to them and just say like, "Hey,
Mm.
you were important."
Build
Um
that bridge again.
yeah. Yeah. I've experienced that and it was profound, actually.
Mm.
So I encourage, don't be afraid to just reach out just because they leave your company. Um, or even if you have to let them go because you're laying them off or they just weren't a good fit or whatever, you can still be friends. You can still,
Yes.
live in the same world together and
Yeah,
show each
absolutely.
other how much you appreciated each other.
Yeah, that's a lot of empathy there, which is it's a big struggle. I think people leaving companies, especially if you're an owner, I think is a big shot into you not doing something, and that's not always the case. And I think that separation of those two is very important. I think it's hard.
Yeah, well, and I think even with, especially with companies that are in growth mode that, are really pushing through the different
Yep.
phases of growth, you're going to have that. And it's not because you're not well, I can't say for sure, but most of the time, it's not because you're a bad person or you're a bad boss or your company
So good.
sucks or whatever. It's because with that growth is going to come alignment toward different goals. And if somebody's at your company for 10 years and over the course of that 10 years, you change 5 different ways because you're in growth mode, that's what's good for you. That's good. What's good for your business. It's what's good for the most of your employees and your clients and everyone you work with. But it might not be the best thing for that one employee who doesn't align on that goal. And so
Yeah.
they're going to go find something else. And that just doesn't necessarily mean that it's you.
Yeah,
It's going to happen.
no doubt. That's really good. Hmm. Mentorship. Being who you needed. You said that you want to be the person you needed when you were younger for yourself and for others. What's the best mentorship advice you've received and how do you pass that forward? First of all, what do you mean by that? The person you needed.
That line came to me randomly through like social media one day or something. Be who you needed when you were younger. And ever since I saw it, it's just like stuck with me. And over the last few years, I've realized how totally true it is for me. Like that
Mm.
is like my life's purpose. I had thought for many years that my life's purpose was to remodel people's homes. Um, and it truly is, but as a vehicle to helping others. And by helping, what I mean by helping others and being who I needed when I was younger. So um, we all have things from our childhood or from when we were young adults or even last week that we needed someone
Mhm.
and there wasn't someone there to provide whatever it was that we needed, whether it was caregiving or something when you were a kid or mentorship when you were entering the workforce or last week when I couldn't decide how to proceed with my marketing plan, like whatever it was. Or that's a bad example. Last week when I was thinking like, wow, the economy sucks right now and I hope my company makes it, that's more of like the
Yeah,
the
sure.
time when I needed somebody. But um I feel strongly that we can be that person for ourselves even if it's after the fact. We can
Mm.
revisit memories from when we were a kid and re-examine and sort of see them from a more mature, more experienced lens, and perhaps forgive our parents or, decide to see something in a different light that is less scarring and damaging to us.
Sure.
and we can, think about when we needed a mentor, and then we can sort of mentor ourselves in that way. And we can also be that person for other people. And so, for example, supporting and sponsoring organizations that empower women and girls. That's one of the ways that I am being who I need now and who I needed when I was younger.
Yeah.
And by supporting and sponsoring organizations that are involved in workforce development for the trades. Like, those are the kinds of things that I do on, outwardly to be that person, but I also am in roundtables. I'm also a sister. I'm also a wife, and a friend. And so I want to be for people in whatever place that they are. I want to be who they need at that moment to help them to sort of move forward into whatever place they need to be next. And, or just be the person that sits there with them while they cry, or whatever it is. And it doesn't always have to be sad. It can be the person that you celebrate with, and, look back on your past experiences to when you really did something you were proud of and there was no one around saying, good job. Go back
100%.
to that, revisit it, and tell yourself, good job, eat some chocolate. I don't know, like, celebrate that. And it helps. It helps you kind of go, you know what? I didn't need anybody else to do that for me. And this is probably a little bit of my Gen X-ness coming out of, like, nobody's coming to save me. But just being who we needed when we were younger.
Have you always been self-reflective or had high emotional intelligence? Like, the words you use, the phrases you're using, your process for, seems like self-reflection, meditation, whatever form you use, seems to be very high. Has it always been this? Is this learned?
I don't know.
Interesting.
Certainly it's practiced. I'm interested in it. I find value in it.
Yeah.
I've been in therapy. Like, I believe that, and I've also seen some pretty dark times in my life, and felt those dark times intensely. And I know how that feels, and I know how it feels to come out of that. And that is a stark reminder of, to always be checking in with yourself, and always make sure that you're, keeping tabs on your mental state and your emotional state. And so it's sort of a muscle that I just keep training. And it's something that has been learned and exercised, but I think that I've kind of always had it to a certain extent. I was kind of an introspective, like, loner kid sometimes, and journaled a lot when I was in high school and things like that.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Thank you. Bringing people into the trades. There's a growing push to get more young people into the trades. If you were talking to a high school student who was unsure about choosing this path, how would you sell them on it?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the one I flex all the time.
How would I sell them on the trades?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. But it's one of those kind of, like, pretty awesome things that you can't really tell someone. They have to do it. They have to be there. And so I think, I don't know, I guess I would say, like, if you're thinking about this, if you are interested in building things, go get a summer job building things. Give it a try. I so wish that I would have spent my summers in high school, like, working on a job site or doing some kind of construction, something, instead of, like, being a cashier at Best Buy. Like, there are skills there. What's that?
Were you part of the geek squad?
I was not. I am not an IT person at all. No, I was a cashier in customer service. So, there were some skills that were
Oh yeah,
absorbed and that kind of thing. But yeah, so I think that's
it's
probably
awesome.
what I would say.
Awesome. Design versus build. You have expertise in both architecture and construction. Do you lean more towards the creative joy of designing or the satisfaction of seeing something physically built, or is it impossible to pick between the two?
That one. Option C, please. Yeah, that's why I do design build. And it's
Gotcha.
why even back when I first started my career, when I was working for an architectural firm, and I heard the term design build and I was like, what is this?
I can see the back half.
I was like, why doesn't everyone do this? And then of course it was like, we don't talk about that here. But no,
there's a lot of risk on that side of the fence.
Like,
you see that C word, contingency? It doesn't happen on our side.
We're gonna stop talking. No, no, I just thought like, wow, that's kind of a no-brainer. That's common sense. Why wouldn't you have both of the things together doing, intermingled?
So you love birth to death. You love seeing the inception all the way to the completion.
Love it. I love
cool.
having the very first phone call with people that I don't even know, which is strange because I'm not super extroverted. I'm an introvert with extroverted tendencies, right? Like you're not an extrovert, but hey, I have a podcast. Sure.
Exactly. This is my safe space. It's just one of those
things. Yeah. So like, I love that very first phone call talking about people's dreams and what's possible. Sure. I love being totally zoned in, so zoned into drawing the plans that I feel like I'm in the house. Like, and I dream about it at night and I wake up making that change because it was such a good idea when I was sleeping. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's like, what was that? But
washer can't go there.
Right. There are no stairs. We can't just levitate to the second floor. But I also love demo day. I love framing. Oh my gosh, the coolest thing with doing remodels and remodeling older homes and specifically is when you have a home that is 100 years old or so, and then you go in and demo it all and expose all the framing, and then you my dog just woke up, and then you go in and you do all the new framing in, mixed in with it. And then you come into the job site and you see the old framing and the new framing next to each other. And it's just the coolest thing.
You are construction nerding out right now.
I am so nerdy. Yeah, it's true. It's true. But I love that. I love seeing all the things come together. I love making sure every detail is like, in the exact right spot so that when it all comes together, it works perfectly. Like, I love that. And I'm not, I'm not perfect. We all make mistakes, but I also really love to be able to say like, you know what? Oops, I'm going to fix that. Like no big deal. We're going to fix it. We already know about it. You don't even have to tell me. And then the feeling of seeing homeowners come back into their space and like really like move their stuff back in and like use their kitchen. And I'm so fortunate and super grateful that I have a couple of different friends that I've actually remodeled their kitchens. And it is the most fun to go to parties at their house because I get to just stand there, like sort of stand in the background and just watch all their friends having a good time in this
cool the space. Flow that you imagined and everything. Yeah.
Yes. And to be able to see the look on the homeowners' faces, my friends' faces, as they're like, it's working. It's working. Like everybody is out of the kitchen. They're not in my way when I'm cooking. They're over there having a good time. There's the bar over there. Like it's so much fun to just kind of stand back and watch that happen. It's amazing. I wish that I could do that for all of my clients, just sort of be a fly on the wall and let them enjoy their space, but that'd be creepy. So
that's incredible. What a satisfaction that is. So without naming any names or anything like that, what is one thing that customers continually ask that you keep shaking your head about? Is there something that always comes up? You're like, we can't do that.
Can't do it?
Yes.
Usually I say, well, we can do anything. It's just a matter of
How much you want to
costs
pay?
and yeah.
That doesn't fit your budget.
um, what thing do I shake my head about? Uh, you know, I don't love the whole like farmhouse,
Ah,
contemporary farmhouse thing. I get it, and there's some okay elements to it, but just washing everything in white and throwing some rustic wood on it just sort of is like, well, it's not really super creative, but
I love that.
I don't know. I just, that's kind of one of the things.
Yeah,
And
it's super in right now too.
yeah, and I still keep like, driving around neighborhoods and like, oh, there's another white house with black trim. Great. Like it's fine. If that's what you want, I'm going to do that for you, but I'm probably going to like try to pull in some other kind of cool stuff. But
yeah, that's cool. Anything else? That is all my questions. So that was super easy. That was already an hour and 5 minutes. Can you believe
I
it?
can't believe that was an hour.
I did my job. Like, you forgot the time.
Yay! It's probably no surprise to anyone who's ever talked to me before that's not really a challenge for me to fill time. But, I'm working on it.
No, that was wonderful. First of all, I love construction, as I'm sure you can tell from being in it for so long. So even if it's like, I've never been involved in houses per se, except for remodeling some of the stuff in our own house, but like construction in general is a universal language. That's what I love so much about it. Project management, whether you're building a house or a power plant, guess what? The parts are exactly the same. You're going to follow the same 5-step process, and it's just going to have different activities and materials and everything else, but it's universal language, which is why you can go anywhere and get a job doing project management.
Yeah. Did you hear that, everyone? You can go anywhere and get a job in construction. You can do this. We need you.
And we're awesome too.
You get to geek out with folks like us.
They're just running into the woods. So
that
Two
was
Islands
the most ridiculous conversation I've ever heard.
Two Islands Design Build. Where can everybody find you? Obviously, if they're up in your area and they want to get a hold of you, what's the best place to get a hold of
you? 2island-designbuild.com. You can go right to the website and read everything that more than you probably even want to know. And then there's a contact page. You can schedule a phone call, send me an email, however you want to get in touch.
And you're also pretty active on LinkedIn, so people could reach out to you there or follow you there because you post, like you said, you schedule things out. So you're pretty committed to it. Sounds like I am, because I am also a scheduler of posts.
Yeah, happy to connect on LinkedIn as well. Yeah.
Do you feel your personal branding on LinkedIn has helped your business?
I don't know.
Okay.
Too soon to tell, I think.
Okay.
I believe it will eventually.
It will.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole like industry expert kind of angle to it, and some of that I think helps. But my personal branding reaches further than my business as far as the goals there. So
sure.
I'm not very good at social media for my company, unfortunately. So
I figured when you brought up about making the market.
Some of the couple of the connections that I'm connected with on LinkedIn are like, be better at, but it's just, I got to do it.
It's a lot of work.
It is. It's a lot of work.
Sure is. Well, I wish you were closer to my area because I would love to work with you, because this was a blast talking, and we're actually, I feel like we're always taking a room and turning it into something. So that's super exciting, but this was amazing. Do you have anything else you want to cover?
Geez, I couldn't possibly. We talked about so many great things.
Do you have?
Yeah, I guess what I would say is that I would like to share with your listeners is don't stop thinking about what's possible for your life, because it doesn't necessarily need to look the way that it does now.
You coming from experience.
I mean, yeah, of course. course. But also just, everybody has a lot more potential than they actually think they do. So
100%. And if
yeah.
you wait until you have enough potential for that next promotion, you will have waited too long. So just dive for it. That
Yes,
is what this
absolutely.
role has taught me, because I would have never been ready for it, for sure.
You just got to do it. It just said to somebody today who was starting up her own business, taking the risk on yourself takes so much guts, and it's so awesome. And it doesn't
Good for you.
necessarily have to mean starting your own business. It
Yeah.
can really be anything, whatever it is that gets you closer to what your dream life is. That's a risk you're taking on yourself, and you should do it.
Woo! We're definitely ending on that one. That was a banger right there.
Okay.
Well done. Well, thank you for coming on and spending an hour and 10 minutes with me. So we'll leave it at that. And thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you.